We end up getting 500 live crickets, some mice, and then a ton of dead fish.
Welcome back to Labeled, the stories, rumors, and legends of Tooth and Nail Records. My name's Matt Carter, and before we start the show today, I want to say a quick thank you to our listeners and to Tooth and Nail Records for letting us make this show. It's a ton of fun, and we're just super thankful for the opportunity, to be honest. So thank you, guys. Please share this show, leave ratings and reviews, and just, word of mouth is the way to go. This has been successful. The show is growing, so please keep telling people about it. Okay, this week we're covering what some people have called the worst tour prank ever, and it was carried out by Anberlin. Well, sort of at least. And maybe it's not the worst tour prank of all time, but it's a good one, and it kind of went sideways. So I'll set the stage for you and get you in the mode. You got to feel the temperature and what the climate was like at that time. The year is 2004, and it's the first Tooth and Nail tour ever. Okay, so this tour was supposed to be headlined by Further Seems Forever, and the support bands, the younger bands trying to get a shot by going out with Further Seems Forever were Anberlin, mewithoutYou, Watashiwa, and Emery, the opener. Now, Further Seems Forever, as some of you know, imploded. Their singer quit, and they dropped off the tour 2 days before it started, and we were all pretty sure the tour was going to get canceled, to be honest. But we showed up anyway, and that left Anberlin in the precarious situation of having to headline the tour, something they'd never done, but being in that position comes with a lot of responsibility. But luckily, they had a tour manager that had a ton of experience to help them out. His name is Jimmy Story. So Jimmy Story, the tour manager, was brought in and hired to make this ship of inexperienced people run well. And so Jimmy did what he knew how to do best, and that is take care of the headliner. It created a little bit of a rocky start as everybody got used to each other and figured out who was in charge and how to behave and all these kinds of things. So it seemed like everybody was going to get along and the tour was going to go off without a hitch, except for the fact of there's these things called end-of-tour pranks where the support bands often get together and prank the headliner band in some loving way where you mess with them on stage during their last song, something like that. And mewithoutYou had been talking a little bit about pulling a prank on Anberlin. So Jimmy and Anberlin decided to do something a little different, flip the script and take part in pranking a support band, which is something that doesn't usually happen. And the result of this prank has certainly become a true legend in Tooth and Nail history. Today's show is sponsored by Movement. Get 15% off your watch purchase by going to mvmt.com/labeled. One more time, that's mvmt.com/labeled. All right, let me hear you now.
How's that sound?
This is Anberlin's drummer, Nate Young. Well, I mean, I don't know what to do here other than I just want to hear the story from your point of view of the worst tour prank in history.
You mean best?
I mean best,
I
right?
mean, it was clearly the best. That whole tour was crazy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't supposed to headline. So we were in this spot, Further Seems Forever was supposed to headline. And then they threw that on us, and the whole thing was just crazy, and we didn't feel like we were ready to headline. Like, it just was so gnarly. So even for, like, a 16, 17-year-old, it was just super weird, you know what I mean, to do that tour anyway and be in that spot, especially with these bands that I was, like, already, like, look, I remember watching mewithoutYou at Furnace Fest and just getting my mind blown and then being like, oh, they're going to play before you. So the whole thing was weird.
We were originally...
Here is mewithoutYou guitarist Mike Weiss.
supposed to be doing a tour under Further Seems Forever's headline. Like, it was going to be like Tooth and Nail tour with like Further Seems Forever, Watashiwa, and Emery. We kind of found ourselves in a situation none of us really signed up for. They were clearly the band to be the headliner as far as I think any of us were concerned. But still, we just still had to kind of get used to that. I don't know. It was just, there was something about me with Anberlin. We just didn't know how like personal we could get. You know?
Would you say that there was probably this thing, this is what I got from talking to them, that the situation was thrust on them is also not what they signed up for. So they seem to not understand or know how serious to take the event or the situation or themselves. They didn't know what it meant to be a headliner and how serious should they act about that. It was weird that y'all were headlining in itself, right? Here's me and Nate again.
it was just a lot of pressure. Yeah,
Yeah,
it just
because you have
felt
to
so
all of a sudden be
strange.
the big dogs and keep control, and you had Jimmy Story tour managing, who was a real hard
Which
ass.
he was a bit, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He was, and we've, you know, he's tour managed such bigger bands than us at the time. So even for us having a tour manager, especially someone like Jimmy Story, who was a hard ass, it was like super just intimidating. So we'd never had a tour manager. So I wasn't sure like how that was supposed to go. You know, the whole like, we just done shows before. I mean, we'd done other tours, but not we were headlining. So even the like scheduling of stuff and being like, this is when you play, and it was just so new to us. So when Jimmy would, you know, be the way he was on much bigger tours, it was intense. Even for us, we were like, oh my gosh, like when he would go tell other bands, like, you have to start at this time, and if you're not, you know, you're going to be busted. So
yeah, like if you're late, he wouldn't give you your per diem, or he said cut your set.
No, he did not.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, so he would
that's stuff I don't think I ever knew.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like looking back, I'm like, I knew he was tough, but I didn't know to that extent. That's a huge part of this story, because him being a part of the prank was for sure the biggest set off.
Hi, this is Seth Roberts from the band Watashi Wa. I don't think any of us had really knew each other before that tour. I think it was kind of the first tour that we were all kind of meeting each other. It was Anberlin, Emery, mewithoutYou, and our band Watashi Wa. And Jimmy Story had become the tour manager for the whole tour, you know, but his main band that he was repping or with was Anberlin.
What were your thoughts early on and as the tour went on with the tour manager, Jimmy Story? Here's me and Mike again.
At the time, I seem to remember he was a very good tour manager for Anberlin. And that didn't always mean good stuff for Emery and Watashi Wa and mewithoutYou.
Totally.
But, you know, it is what it is, man. I get it 100%. And mad respect to Jimmy Story for that. But I think as a result of that, there was some forces of mischief that were arising on that last day of tour.
Nate and Jimmy,
here's Seth Roberts, Watashi Wa's lead singer,
had this idea to pull a prank on mewithoutYou. And, you know, pranks happen all the time on tours. I've heard pretty crazy stories about like bands lifting other bands' vans and like taking their tires off and just wild stuff.
Well, it was nearing the end of tour.
This is Stephen Christian. He's the lead singer and frontman of Anberlin.
And I remember our tour manager at the time kind of coming up to us and just saying, basically, hey, I overheard the mewithoutYou guys are going to pull a prank on you. You know, we should kind of preemptively strike before they do. And our imaginations were running wild. You know, we had heard of bands putting rotting things into the engine so that it would kind of smell up the air conditioning unit. You know, we heard about like people putting crazy stuff in gas tanks. So, you know, we were all just like, oh man, what are they going to do? Well, I'm not going to say any names, Jimmy's Story, but he basically said, all right, we are going to go and strike them hard before they hit us.
I will say,
here's me and Nate again,
that the whole tour, starting from like the first day, mewithoutYou was talking mad trash about how much they were going to prank us. And that's the biggest thing that's left out of this story. I mean, they were literally day one, because back then I think everyone knows at this point that was such a thing. You prank people, you know, like I don't think anyone does it now, but back then that was like a huge part of tour. End of the tour pranks were massive. So mewithoutYou comes on the tour. I'm 16, 17. They start saying, oh, you guys are going to get pranked so hard. Like you're not even ready for it. You know, they told stories about how they took tires off a band's van and put them on cinder blocks they were like saying things that were crazy. They were like, we're going to do this. So that's the thing, is a lot of people I don't think knew that.
The way Nate remembers it is, here's me and Mike again. And he was very young at the time, but he remembers early on in the tour, a lot of chatter about Me Without You's going to get you at the end of the tour.
What? Based on what? I mean, we never, look, if anything, Norma Jean used to get us. I don't know. I guess we did get them back. But there wasn't this, I don't understand why we would have that reputation as if you go on tour with Me Without You and you can just count on them pranking you, because that just was not something we'd normally do. If it happened, it was in retaliation. Norma Jean got us really good, and we got them back. We were supposed to stay with their friends after a show. They sent us to like the wrong house, or like then we came back at them with like a dead squirrel being like lit on fire in front of the lawn of the house they were staying at, and some other stuff that happened with like some Olive Garden leftovers. That's literally the only pranks that we've ever done, and it was with Norma Jean. So yeah, okay, that's fair enough. I can get it if you heard some stories about us and Norma Jean. Maybe you think like that's just how we roll, which it's not. Like
because you're super tight with Norma Jean anyway, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like we didn't have, look, Norma Jean and Me Without You is going to go down in the history of like band relationships. It's like a slam dunk. It's like, yeah, the thing about Anberlin is like I was super tight with Joe, and like I could chill with Nate once in a while backstage. Didn't really connect to the same degree with some of the other guys in the band, right? Nothing negative, no problems. My point is like, that band, we didn't mesh up in the same degree, but which is totally fine and normal as far as I'm concerned. It's just one of those things where like you didn't really know how it would really be taken, to kind of be like messing with those guys.
You didn't necessarily feel even close enough with them to even really execute a prank, is what you're saying, even by the end of the tour.
Yeah, like we shouldn't have been messing with those guys. Like, so I think we really, anything that happened to us, we had it coming, like 100%.
So anyway, we had already been talking about it, trying to figure out what we were going to do. I mean, we threw out tons of ideas. We've heard, at one point we were going to try and turn their whole bus into a large peanut butter and jelly sandwich. we're gonna buy like bread and jelly. I think some other band did, and we got the idea. So anyway, then we didn't talk about it much more until it got to that actual day. And again, I think the day before, what was his name? Me Without You's tour manager,
Bender.
He was the one that was talking the most trash too, and specifically to Jimmy, because it was like this whole like, oh, tour manager thing, whatever. So anyway, day of, we're driving to the show, and it should be noted too, we had a van, and Me Without You had taken an old, what bus was that? It was like a charter bus?
It was like a shuttle bus from an airport at that point.
A shuttle bus, yeah. That's what it was. And they'd taken it, and they had done rad stuff to it. They put like bunks. So it was more than just a rented van or a van.
Yeah, it was their home. It was their home that they lived in. It wasn't just their van, Like they had woodwork in it that they had done. They built the bunks. They had couches, their cabinets, food, all those things.
Yeah. So anyway, so we get to the show, and we're trying to figure out what to do. We still don't have a plan. So Jimmy, our tour manager, I really don't even know how I fully became his like right-hand man. It just ended up being me, because we all were talking about it, but we took initiative, and he's like, yo, let's do the prank. They've been talking mad trash. We're going to get them good. So we go drive. And again, this is why I remember being middle of nowhere, because we couldn't even find like a Walmart. I mean, it was like, so the only thing that we could find was a bait shop.
Make the world new, things you dream to do, with love from me to you.
All right, I'm going to take a second and tell you guys about Movement watches. It's MVMT, pronounced movement. Now, Movement was founded on the belief that style shouldn't break the bank. So the watchmaker's goal here is to change the way that consumers think about fashion by offering high-quality, minimalist products at revolutionary prices. Now, with over 1 million watches sold to customers in over 160 countries around the world, Movement Watches has solidified itself as the world's fastest-growing watch company, and good for them. So I'm going to give you a little tip right here. Let's just nip this in the bud right now. Think of somebody that you're going to eventually have to go shopping and buy a Christmas gift for, somebody that you care about, and let's knock it out right now. Holiday shopping can be tough. Thanks to Movement, that anxiety can disappear with the press of a button. Literally, this will make a great gift for whoever has popped into your mind. Let's take care of it today. Because, you know, the holiday shopping season's here, and you can skip the crowds. You don't have to go down to the department stores, and you're going to have stress and anxiety if you wait till the last minute on this. So this one you can knock out right now. Movement watches start at just $95, and at a department store, you'd be looking at $400 to $500. Plus, you got to deal with the people and the parking and the traffic and all that. So Movement figured out by selling to you online, they can cut out the middleman and the retail markup and provide the best possible price. So at such great prices, this is a no-brainer. So classic design, quality construction, and a styled minimalism. Over 1 million watches sold. Here's what you got to do. Get 15% off today with free shipping and free returns by going to mvmt.com/labeled. The watch I have and all their watches have a really clean design that makes a great fashion statement. Now is the time to step up your watch game. Get somebody this as a gift. Go to mvmt.com/labeled. Join the movement.
And so tell me what's your name and what's inside that heart of yours. Tell me everything, just talk and I'll listen.
Back to Nate and Jimmy at the bait shop.
That's all we could find. We
Bait
looked
shop.
around we were just going to go kind of brainstorm and see what shook loose. So anyway, we pull up, we go in, and Jimmy, and it all starts clicking. I remember.
So you're just driving in Oklahoma and looking for an idea for a prank, and then all of a sudden you see it, bait shop, and
Bait
it hits you. I've got it.
Yeah. So we go in, and Jimmy just starts grabbing stuff. He's like, I got, blah, blah, blah. We end up getting, I think it was like 500 live crickets. Yeah, it was at least 500. And then he found some mice and then a ton of dead fish. All right. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to go back. We're going to put it, whatever, on top of their car. I wasn't sure what we were doing exactly. So we waited till Me Without You was on stage because no one was in there. And Jimmy, I think I held him up. I think I propped him up because it was like a bus, and I was holding him, and he slid the window open.
And I remember sitting next to Joey.
Okay, this is Nikki Kleinberg, guitarist Chris Kleinberg's wife, who did merch for Me Without You. And although she didn't play an instrument on the stage, she was a huge part of the band.
Yeah, Joey from Anberlin. I was sitting at the merch table, I think, and he was sitting next to me. And then he was shaking, his knee was shaking really fast. And he was staring, and he was nervous, and he's like, something really bad happened, and I can't tell you.
And then we dumped all 500 crickets into their bus and let the mice go. And then Jimmy, I remember at one point he had the fish, and he was literally sticking his arm in and trying to fling it as far as he could. We didn't just dump it in. He was just whipping them in there. And I remember I could see the top when he dumped the crickets in. They landed in a pile, and then it was whoosh, and they disappeared, just hidden into their bus.
You've taken this too far. Now it has to stop. You've taken this too far.
Hey guys, this is Devin from Emory. We had kind of heard rumblings, but nothing specific. We didn't really know what was happening. But Me Without You's on stage, and Anberlin comes rolling up to Me Without You's bus. They had this like mini tour bus. It was kind of like a transit bus. Really cool setup inside with a lounge and bunks. Really awesome. And so Anberlin rolls up, and this is no exaggeration. They had a bucket full of dead fish. They had this container full of crickets and even mice. They had mice to put in Me Without You's bus. And so they fill their bus with these creatures. I mean, they just let them go, put dead fish all over the beds, couches, just everywhere. And again, Me Without You's on stage, have no idea what's going on. Anberlin is pulling this prank. They think it's hilarious. We're not really sure what to think. So shortly after, Me Without You gets off stage, and they do what bands do after they play. They go back to their bus to get freshened up and just kind of chill for a little while. And when they do, they walk onto a bus that just reeks of dead fish and just insects, and mice start going everywhere. Crickets start chirping like crazy. And I remember specifically one of the guitar players, Chris, at the time, his wife Nikki was on tour, and she just absolutely lost it.
This is war. Can I take it anymore? I'm falling faster and bleeding more than I have bled before. Certain death, this blade will come. Lingers on the outer hand, but I will fight you, and victory will be mine in the end.
Yeah, so he's kind of looking down, his knees shaking, and he's kind of staring, and he says, "Yeah, something bad's going on. I can't tell you. You're gonna be really." And he warns me. He's like, "You're gonna be really mad." And I was like, "What is it?" And I was like, "You have to tell me what it is." Then he says, "You're gonna find out soon enough, so I may as well tell you." And he said, "I just want you to know I had nothing to do with it." And he didn't. I didn't. He said, "I told them not to do it. I told them it was too messed up, and I had nothing to do with it." And so I said, "Okay, tell me, and you'll be off the hook." And then he says, "We put, see if I can remember, like 300 grasshoppers, 4 mice."
There was some dead fish.
The dead fish. The dead fish is what was really gross. They slid open our bus window that we were living in, sleeping in, cooking in, keeping food in. So they slid open the window, dropped all those different creatures into our bus. And I was like, oh,
I remember coming into the bus, and there was crickets everywhere. There was fish and some mice. And I remember walking into the bus, like, what the f***? What the f***? What is that? Crickets? What? The f***? Just being like, but like
you had no idea. Like you just walked in and it was a shock, surprise.
I was pissed. I was mad because that was our home. Like, and it was a mixture of just surprise and anger. And of course, like a little bit of, I can't believe they did this, because it was our bus that we took and like gutted out. And you guys own a bus, right? And so you understand, like, you do so much work to get it ready and like make it your home. And it was literally that kind of thing. It was like our baby. It wasn't just some Econoline van that you just buy it and it has the seats in it and you go about your business. It was like our dream in life. We built 3 bunks, and we installed carpeting, and we had couches that were built that wrapped around the entire back and around the side. And we did so with a lot of pride. We installed like heating, ventilation, and storage for all our merch. And it was just one of those things where we took a lot of time. I'm not trying to like get the violin out here, you know, but just to be totally honest, it was a lot of work, and we really took pride in that bus, right? And so I think that's why it stung a little bit more. It was almost like if it were just a van, if it was just some, whatever vehicle,
or your hotel room, or the place you were staying at night, or anything.
Yeah, it wouldn't have hit as close to home as the bus, because, like I said, it was like our baby.
I was like, man, we got him good. That was funny. Blah, blah, blah. Wait till they see it.
Like, you thought, wait till they see this. We're all going to die laughing together.
Yeah, we're all going to have fun. I was like, this is going to be, Jimmy and I are going to go down as like, I was excited to be a part of it. I was like, that was great. I was like, it's not like we spray painted or anything permanent,
So here we were, and it was infested with crickets and a couple mice and some fish. And I remember it was the most pissed off I've seen Nikki ever. Nikki is fuming at this point. She was seeing red.
So when I heard it, I was filled with rage. I went over towards our bus, and it was all dark, but I did see the window that was slid open.
And Me Without You's on stage, so you were the first one to encounter the bus.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. So I somehow see Jimmy, and I target him as like the one that I can attack. And I literally go in and I tried to beat him up, but I'm not very strong.
What do you mean?
So
you went.
Again, have you ever experienced rage?
No, not like that.
Yeah, it wasn't like, it was tunnel vision, like pure tunnel vision. And I saw Jimmy, of course, I think he's wearing like black jeans and like a black leather jacket. And he's like carrying a case and I grabbed him and I played out the sort of like high school scene beat up kind of thing. He's wearing dark. It's dark, like darkness just all around, and all I see is him. And I like I twist his shirt and I shove him against the wall and I just start like punching him as hard as I can, but it doesn't seem effective. And he kind of thought it was funny. And that made me even more mad.
He thought it was funny when you were attacking him physically, and you intended to harm him, weren't able to, and he thought that was funny.
Yeah. So then I was like, all right. He did let me throw him outside by his shirt. That felt cool. I felt tough. Like I remember grabbing him by his like jacket and then throwing him outside, because then this was like a really risky moment where I felt the edge of like the danger of rage, like I picked up a rock and I threw it at him, and I was like, oh geez, like that wasn't cool.
It was kind of like chaos, and everyone's like, oh crap, and then I started to like feel so bad. Like I remember it was like devastating me, because again, being in the position of being like a headliner, just the whole thing was such a like big deal that it felt so weird to like be in that spot where I was looking at these dudes that were in bands that I loved, and they were like so angry at me. So Mike, I remember he was very upset, and he was the one that I remember that I could see it on his face. It was so mad. And then Chris was like, I remember he was laughing about it, kind of shrugging it off. And same with Aaron. They were both like, and I heard Aaron make some comment about that he liked it because it was going to sound like he was sleeping outside because the amount of crickets. He was like, it's like camping. So anyway, I remember standing there. And then I remember Chris's wife.
Nikki.
She came running out. The word went around that it was pretty much Jimmy and I was involved, but I think maybe because my age, or maybe just because no one really liked Jimmy anyway. She comes running out with a cup full of piss.
Enough for both of us. When will you see? It's not so easy for me. Your colors and whisper, insulting and bruising.
So then I instantly was like, all right, well, there's only one thing I could do. I run over to the dumpster and I jump inside like one of those big dumpsters, and I look for anything gross. And I couldn't really find anything gross, but I did see an empty cup. So I peed in the cup and I set it on the lid, and then I hopped out, and then I grabbed the cup and I felt in my body more collected, and I walked over to him, and I remember like, hey, Jimmy. And then he like turned towards me, and then I like poured the pee on his head. And I remember him like looking down and seeing it dripping down and putting his hands out. And he says, is that piss? And I said, yes, it is. And I'm on my period, too, so probably some menstrual blood. And somehow it really did hold some of that like power of the feminine got to be in there in a way that felt like more powerful. And it also got on and in the carrying case that he had, which I was happy about because it belonged to Anberlin.
And we were all just dumbfounded. Like, nobody gave Nikki any shit for it because nobody wanted to be on her shit list at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And to Jimmy Story's credit, he just took it like a champ. I think he realized, like, okay, the buck stops here.
In Jimmy's defense, he took that in stride. He was like,
feeling bad, did you think?
Yeah, and I think too, in his mind, I think he was feeling bad. I think he was also like, once we realized Me Without You didn't have a single plan to prank us, you know what I mean? I think they bailed on that.
And they didn't even do anything to you.
No, even after that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I still, for the years after, we feel so bad, because at least they would have, even if they would have done something horrible, like, I don't know, something next level, we would have felt better about it because, we did that to them. So anyway, I just remember them going in there, a couple of them did, and it was like we ruined everything.
They went into clean mode immediately.
Here's Toby.
Like, they just started cleaning, and it immediately went from, oh man, look at this thing that happened, to, oh God, look at this thing that happened. Oh no. It was, I think Anberlin and Jimmy Story thought, we're going to get these guys, this will be so funny, ha ha ha. And it immediately went to not ha ha, but sad. Like, everybody got sad. It just the tour ended right there. Like, it just ended. Like, there was no more fun. There was no more joy. That was the end of the tour.
I mean, it was like and again, like you said, they lived there. It was their bus. They'd worked on it. But I just remember being a little shocked at how upset they were.
How about the way that it affected the bus and the cleanup? I remember specifically you guys complaining that the crickets being the worst part, that you couldn't get rid of them.
We did, we eventually got them out, but you had to chase them down, and it took like a week or so to get them all out, but it was nuts, man.
It was just cricket doomsday.
This is Ricky Mazzata, Me Without You drummer.
We just went to a gas station, got the vacuum. We all go to sleep. You hear a cricket. One cricket survives. Last day when we get home, a mouse runs out. Like, it was the gift that kept on giving.
There were crickets in there like for so long, and Chris kind of loved it. Like, I think even in his memory, he still thinks it's like so funny, like laying in bed to the sound of crickets.
After that, I remember I felt so bad. I literally wrote a handwritten note to Mike. I wrote him a long letter because I felt bad. I mean,
how did Mike respond to your letter?
I remember he saw me at the end, and we like all hugged it out. But it was that awkward, like, I don't know if it's ever going to be cool vibe.
And I remember them just basically from that time on.
Here's Steven again.
Not really ever talking to us again. Like, I mean, we were cordial. They were very nice and kind of like smiled when we were around. But dude, there's no way that band liked us after that, because that was pretty crappy. Not gonna lie. And come to find out, this is the worst part about it. Come to find out that their prank against us was going to be them basically holding me back from the first song, kind of like holding me down so that like the band would go out and start the first song and kind of play, and I wouldn't show up. And that was it. There was nothing crazy. They weren't going to like put a dead animal under our seat and like, let us find it days later. They were literally, all they were going to do is literally hold me back so that, I wasn't out there for the first song.
I mean, we saw them again at like festivals, and there was still like an underlining like vibe there. And it always bummed me out because we like love those dudes. And so it just was a weird thing to like have that stem from what was supposed to be like a prank.
How about the other guys in Anberlin? Were they not on the hook at all? Were they implicated?
No,
Sounds like
I mean,
it was
I
all
think
you and Jimmy.
it was, but I still think there was this, like, maybe they thought we all discussed it more than we did. And, you know, maybe they thought they all, like, rode off on it. I don't know.
Did Joey and Dion and Steven and them, did they get mad at you or did they get your back?
I think they backed it. I mean, I think that they were like, thought it was funny. I'm sure that they were like, oh, that was too far. But yeah, I don't think that they like denounced us. I think they supported it. Man, that's so funny. I literally would have other bands for years after come up to us and talk about that prank. Like want us to recount all of it. And there was always something added into it.
So you would hear this for the grapevine that other people had heard the story and they tell it back to you with additional details that weren't even true.
Yeah. But even if they got it right, I was always shocked at how much everyone thought it was so messed up.
Like you to this day still don't think it was that bad. Come on. It's a normal prank.
Yeah, I think it was just, compared to what I've heard or what we could have done, I mean, I understand, but I still don't think the recognition that it got is like the worst, most brutal prank ever. I don't think. I mean, I have tour pranks that I can't even talk about that scarred me way more than I feel like this would. But
yeah, I think that's true. I'm sure that, I mean, there's ones you hear of that are way more disgusting and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've cleaned human shit off of door handles. In my mind, I'd rather have crickets than do that ever again. So
yeah.
It was one of the most memorable things that has ever happened to me on any tour, though. I got to hand it to Jimmy. Number one, the guy, he laughed it off, which I just thought basically like that was pretty admirable. He also did a pretty good job in pranking us. You know, like you got to hand it to the guy for just coming up with the idea. I mean, it was a pretty good idea, and he pulled it off.
We promised payback that we never gave to him, but I might get those guys back if I ever see them.
Me Without You, I just want to say on behalf of Anberlin that that was not really Anberlin. That was one guy, and I am so sorry. And yeah, it's kind of the worst thing that I've ever heard any band do to another band. But anyway, my bad, Me Without You. We love you guys. You guys put out phenomenal music.
we should all freaking have a reunion show just to make up for
that's
it.
not a bad idea. I'm sure that'd be fun.
That'd be dope.
Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. My name is Matt Carter. I do this show along with Toby Morrell and Aaron Lunsford. This show is produced, mixed, and edited by Melanie Studley. The assistant producers are Marshall Fremeth, Reva Hansen, and Tyson Paletti. And special thanks to Adam Scatula from Tooth and Nail for helping to develop the show. See you guys next time.